I want to talk about something that doesn't always go down that well on this podcast, but AI stealing your jobs. Everyone would have seen, heard, and watched the news cycle about Jack Dorsey at Block and how his memo was received. So just to remind the room, Block is cutting 40% of its workforce from over 10,000 to down to under 6,000. And I think using AI as this excuse, and I'm calling bullshit on this, because Block ballooned from 4,000 employees in 19 to over 13,000 in 21. And its share price pretty much dropped from 22 down 75%, has stayed bottom rung, as pretty low as it's ever been, and it's still 69% down on its 2022 peak. So I don't see it as some visionary AI restructuring. I see it as simply a return to pre-COVID headcount, and it's a bit of a dressing up. Now, this then means that they're targeting more than 2 million in gross margin per employee, which is roughly 4x what we saw at pre-COVID levels. So I don't know what's going on behind the scene operationally in this business, but this is pretty nuts. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to pull a Klarna. They're going to start rehiring when things start to improve. I think they're going to have real operational struggles. And for context, I just want to look at a little bit of the wider market. So on the AI culling jobs front, by the end of 25, US companies, including HP, Amazon, Pinterest, Workday, and many, many others, they were all hitting the headlines, and they all collectively cut about 55,000 jobs, blaming AI. Behind the scenes, nearly 60% of US hiring managers surveyed say they emphasize AI in the role cutting piece because they believe than stating financial constraints or operational challenges or other wordology. So, in other words, they're basically admitting that AI is better PR than saying we overhired. Now, so I don't think there's anything in this, but is there anything that you would like to pick up on? I agree, disagree, please fight.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like, I think that the company had become horribly bloated and that Jack might be using a bit of a smokescreen here to, he might see the market getting a bit choppier. Which is maybe something we'll come on to soon. And this is a kind of covert, disguised reduction in force, right? Which may be a smart time to do it and a smart smokescreen under which to do it. I mean, the market has responded broadly positive, right? Up 20-25% off the back of this news.
Yeah, but you can't really see the uptick in the graph, even though it's a 20-25% nearly uplift.
The only thing I would say is if you referenced Klarna, right? Who made a big thing in 2023 about leaning in heavily into AI, partnering with OpenAI to automate large parts of its business. The headline claim from them that AI could handle the work of 700 customer service agents, support operations were heavily automated. So that experiment ultimately failed because I think they found too many hallucinations. Too many edge cases or complex cases that the service agents just couldn't handle, right? Basically, the technology wasn't quite ready. The only thing that if you look at what Jack is saying, it seems to me that they're going to be deploying AI and or reducing headcount. Like they're reducing like duplication, middle management, internal layers of people, right? So, and maybe they're going to be using AI, not necessarily customer facing, but internally. Maybe you could distinguish there, but which in a way that it actually might be genuine and more likely to succeed than what Klarna did. But certainly, there's definitely a bit of both here. There's definitely like, he saw the payroll, it's like, this is too big. Things are getting choppier. Bitcoin's way down, got more competition, except even though the numbers are pretty good quarter on quarter at the moment at the company, I think it's a convenient time to do it.
I looked at the numbers thinking that there would be a different story, and it's not. Margins are actually quite fine.
Yeah,
I think this
getting
is
better.
This is just a oops, we hired too many people. He did the same thing at Twitter. Oops. And then he's a bit of an Elon fanboy, so I'm sure he's looking at what he did at Twitter and going, right, let's cull this ship. Mads, you'll probably have a different take on the tech and the tech impact. Is that fair?
No, I think he's quite smart in terms of how he positioned it. He's talking about this massive step change in December, and we've lived it. We've talked about it live on the weekly pods, right? Opus 4.5 at the end of last year converted even the holdovers. Andrej Karpathy said, it didn't work before December. It's worked since. It was a massive step change. And then we saw another step change again with Opus 4.6 this year. Again, we're back to Anthropic technology. They are running the world right now. It's incredible. So we've seen things become more productive. We've seen it in our portfolio. Devs are saying, look, we used to have teams of 10. Now we have teams of 5, and they are more productive, right? To put them in these little groups. The truth is, well-run companies, they grow with it. They don't use it to get rid of 40% of headcount. And it is absolutely, you should say, because they become bloated. It's also because the Bitcoin thing and the whole crypto side of the business didn't quite work out the way they were hoping over the last year. They've had some beating up there. The market really bought the signal when he announced the layoffs, because that's what they are, and the stock shot up. And yeah, the substance is definitely thinner than his memo suggests, but he got away with it, I think, to a large extent, and good on him. There'll be some AI doomers out there that are happy that they're seeing this.
No, I'm not sure that he got away with it. I think everybody's having the same conversation. But let's talk about
stock prices up though. That's what he wanted, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you're helping and serving your market, then fair enough. Let's talk about some of the big AI stuff, and the upshot here is massive investment by the hyperscalers in, I think we've already touched on it a little bit, in this kind of extremely volatile and a slightly troubled, obviously now war-torn world. Hyperscalers planning to spend, depending on what numbers you read, around $650 billion on infrastructure this year alone. $650 billion. Some are in the 7s to the 800s, and some are in the 5s and 6s. So I've kind of split the difference there. So just committed a $60 billion to AMD to do a chip deal and receive a 10% equity stake. So that's quite an interesting deal. I'm sure we'll have an opinion on that. Meanwhile, Lux Capital is writing black swan memos to its founders saying, brace for impact. Only a handful of AI startups actually matter, and the rest of you need to stretch your cash and plan for the worst. This isn't the first black swan we've seen in as many years. Foundation Capital still shouting about the SaaSpocalypse after $1 trillion got wiped off the stock market in a single week. So we're seeing this massive infrastructure boom. We're not quite sure how that's going to roll out and how energy is going to be provided. Although I remember reading that Trump has asked all of the hyperscalers to provide their own energy. So don't know how that's going to work out. But we've got this massive infrastructure push. We've got this very kind of volatile, scary macro that we're living in. Oh, and one other thing to throw into the pot. DeepSeek is about to drop version 4, a trillion parameter multimodal model. Built on Chinese chips, or was it built on Chinese chips? Mads, you might have some insight there. So I know, Mads, specifically, you're kind of bored of me going on about the bubble story stuff, but are we bifurcating even more? What would you like to dig into here?
Yeah, I mean, look, bubble, right? Everybody's talking about the bubble, but Anthropic, they grew from 9 billion ARR in Q4 to 19 billion now. I've never seen anything like it before, guys. I mean, this is going to be fastest 20 bill of ARR in history.
We'll have to keep an eye on their Q2 figures. They might not be so juicy, but sure.
That's what we've been saying every quarter, and every quarter they've been blowing it away.
Did you see, guys, that OpenAI? I don't know if you saw it announced today that OpenAI have just announced 25 billion ARR, and if you take the last week of trading from OpenAI, it's 30 billion. If you annualize
the run
last
rate.
week.
Okay. Thanks.
Clearly, there is some substance to this, and we know because we live it every day. Yeah. If you take the whole world, I mean, this one's been doing the rounds, right? If you take the whole world and you split it up into chunks of 3 million people, so all 8 billion people split up in chunks of 3 million people, well, then 80% have never even used AI, and of the 20% that have used AI, kind of 95% have never paid for it. It's all been free, or freemium, kind of ChatGPT or Gemini, and a very, very small proportion have been paying for AI monthly subscription, and an even smaller proportion, 1 out of 2,500 have been using sort of the sophisticated tools like Claude Code and Codex and paid more. So in terms of monetization, we are so early in this, and there's so much upside in terms of how this will monetize. Yes, of course, we're seeing froth. Seed stage companies coming out, pre-seed companies come out with a deck and a couple of OpenAI renegades that have left the ship, raising a $2 billion seed round, right, with nothing more than good intentions and a nice name. That feels frothy, and a lot of people will be burned on that sort of thing. Elon Musk putting a price tag of $250 billion on XAI that's doing, 60 million of AI revenue. It's got nuts numbers. But then there are companies like Anthropic, and it's the real deal. So I don't know. Yes, there's froth here and there, but I think what really matters is there is also so much substance underneath.